Welcome to another video by me. Today we're looking at the Martini Henry from Battlefield 1, the ultimate one-bang blaster, at least for many players at the time, and still to this day if you're still playing Battlefield 1. This was going to be another entry in my Remember series, but the last one didn't exactly kick off and pick up a whole load of views, so I'm trying to find the best way to market these videos on older Battlefield titles. It may just be that they're just not going to get views regardless, considering there was one Conquest server in Europe on BF1 when I got this footage, and I am on the lookout for other games to play. Do let me know what's coming up that you're interested in seeing content on, but for now, we're still on Battlefield, and this is 10 reasons why the Martini Henry was so awesome, which it genuinely was and still is. I am still on the hunt for 50k subscribers, by the way, so if you enjoy this video, you're new here, or you just want to help out, hitting that subscribe button would make me super happy. I'm not doing this with a script, so we'll just see how this goes. Reason number one why the Martini Henry was so awesome was it was unique. There was no other gun in Battlefield 1 that was like the Martini Henry. Indeed, there was no gun in any game I'd really played that was like the Martini Henry. The animations felt unique. The gun itself stood out against the rest. It looked different. It felt like it had history behind it. And it's been remembered because of that. There's a reason why videos still get views on the Martini Henry, unless this one doesn't. But from other creators, the Martini Henry is just one of those guns that has remained popular and has kind of a legacy behind it. For some people, they think Battlefield 1 and they think Martini Henry. It's right there at the forefront of their memory. And that shows this gun was genuinely special. If it still pops into your head for a game that's been out for 4 years or whatever it is, then it must have been doing something right. And it was really quite popular at the time, at least at certain points in the meta. And so for me, that standout aspect of this gun is a reason why it was genuinely so awesome, because I also think it was awesome. I fully agree with that standpoint. Reason number two why the Martini Henry was so awesome was the risk-reward factor. Now, some people say this gun was super overpowered and all you had to do was run around with it and blow people away, but actually, it wasn't really the case. When you're getting killed by the Martini, it seems incredibly powerful. However, when you're the user of the Martini, you have to be completely aware that if you miss your shot in certain circumstances, you're probably going to die, especially if you're somewhere up close. If you take that shot and you miss, you're in big trouble, because you're going to have to reload, and that takes a little while. You only get one shot at a time, and that made it fun. Remember that when you use the Martini Henry, you are a scout in Battlefield 1, and to get the most out of it, you have to be good with it running around, or extremely accurate at range, which, trust me, is not easy to do with this gun, especially when you consider you are up against other bolt-action rifles, which have scopes on them and can one-shot more easily from range, whereas up close, you're up against the Hellriegel, the SMG-08, the Model 10A Hunter, and all that kind of stuff. Risk to reward was a massive aspect of the Martini Henry. You may go out there and just get absolutely decimated trying to make it look great, or you might go on some crazy 15 kill streak up close running around. I love guns like that, and many other people do too, and it's definitely a reason why it was so awesome. And that point somewhat leads us into our next one, which is it was so satisfying to use. Partially because of that risk-reward factor tied in with the animations and everything else, plus just the way the gun played. Actually getting it to perform well and picking up those kills was genuinely satisfying in a way that a lot of guns just aren't. Now, there is something to it being a scout weapon, which often are satisfying when you do well with them, and just in general one-shot weapons. When you pull off that perfect kill with a one-shot weapon, especially one like this, which is a risk/reward weapon, it just feels good. A lot of you out there will be able to relate to what I'm saying. Whenever you picked up kills with the Martini Henry, it just felt special, unlike any gun I've ever used in a different game again. Now, I've loved using other guns in Halo and Destiny and whatever else, but nothing feels exactly like using the Martini Henry and using it to the best of its abilities. And I should say, this is the Martini Henry Infantry, obviously we're covering. The Martini Henry Sniper is basically an entirely different beast, but that was kind of satisfying as well. And that brings us to our next reason. It's an awesome scout playstyle. It basically flips the traditional idea of a scout completely on its head. You know, you've got that archetypal, somewhat exaggerated idea of a scout sitting way back somewhere, looking down through the crosshairs, not moving for 7 weeks and picking up one kill here and there. The Martini Henry simply doesn't work for that. So when someone picks a Martini Henry, 99% of the time it's because they want to actually engage at a closer distance, be of use to the team. Even if they're holding down a specific point, it has to be somewhat near the enemy for it to be effective. And that's super fun to do as well. I like guns in games that give you different options for how to play it, otherwise it becomes boring. And the Martini Henry is never boring. Our next reason why it was so awesome was because it couldn't one-shot up close. Yes, a reason why it was awesome was something that went against the weapon. You couldn't one-shot kill to the body with the Martini Henry inside, I believe, 30 meters or something like that, which was fantastic because that would have kind of ruined the whole thing about the weapon. If you could just run around with it and one-shot anywhere, it would have, 1, probably completely broken the game, 2, wouldn't have been anywhere near as satisfying, and 3, would have caused so many more people, rightly so, to absolutely hate and despise the weapon, whilst also invalidating a whole load of other weapon choices out there, which we never want. So the fact that the gun was actually pretty much balanced was a great thing. Something isn't awesome because it's easily the strongest thing out there. It's a multitude of factors. So I'm really glad this gun wasn't super OP and isn't actually the gun that some people label it as. It's not an easy run around, blow people away from a meter away weapon. In fact, it's weak there because you got to hit your shot and then switch to your sidearm, while it's much easier if someone's just spray you down with an automatic weapon from close range. The next reason why the Martini Henry was so awesome was the auto-rotation nerf. Now, spoiler, our next point after this one is going to be the flip side of this, but for now, in Battlefield 1, auto-rotation on console, on controllers, whatever, was heavily nerfed because it used to be way too strong, whereas in BF5, of course, as many of you know, they went the other way and added auto-rotation. But whatever, DICE, you do you. But infantry scout weapons or infantry bolt-action rifles, ones without a scope, were so blatantly overpowered in BF1 with a controller for a very long time. It made very little sense in a lot of circumstances to use a scope on console when you could just insta-lock on with an infantry rifle that could one-shot to the body at certain ranges. So when they got heavily nerfed, it brought the Martini Henry much more in line with where it should have originally been. And that for me is a massive reason why it's so awesome now. 1, it was very annoying to play against this kind of thing all the time, and 2, it became kind of mundane to use. It was so easy and simple that satisfaction factor I talked about earlier was almost completely lost. I didn't want that, and I'm glad that it disappeared. And so that brings us to our next point, which is it was broken. Before the auto-rotation nerf, this thing was just stupid. It was dumb, and that was the reason why some people really liked it. Me for a while, and then I came to hate it because of the same reason. But I ended up doing a video on how easy it was to use the Martini at one point, which got, I think, over 100,000 views, even when my channel was really small, and caused some people to absolutely despise me for kind of ruining the experience of the Martini or playing against it, which I don't necessarily blame them for, although I'm just here to give the information. However, it was the reason why some people really liked it, even if it's not me. So yeah, that was just stupid. It was stupid overpowered. Our next point is the gun was actually used in World War I, which is a massive thing for some players. I've said before this isn't a big deal for me, but I am doing this list partially for me, partially for the different kinds of Battlefield 1 fans out there. So, unlike some guns in this game, experimental weapons like the SMG-08s, the Hellriegel, which saw either no or very little usage in World War I, and so throws off that authentic feel of the game at times, the Martini Henry was an epic gun that was actually used in World War I, even though it's super old. It was produced towards the end of the 1800s, and yet was still being used in World War I in some areas, and actually was used some way after that in other battles and wars, so pretty impressive for the Martini Henry. It actually featured in World War I, and that's a great thing for some players who really like that authenticity. Our next point is the gun forced actual thought. As covered earlier, you couldn't just run around everywhere, but we didn't go over the cognitive process. You actually had to consider your positioning, where your gun was strong, where it wasn't, when it was best to use your sidearm to run around with, and when it was best to have the actual Martini in your hands. Looking at enemy players to work out what class they were to see if you could take them on or not. All that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that. You can do a huge amount of damage, but you can easily be shredded if you don't use it well or you get your positioning wrong. That is a great aspect of why the gun was so awesome. And so to our final point, the sound. The sound of it. I will always remember how the Martini Henry sounds, and some of you out there will be exactly the same. I'm not going to talk about it too much. Let's just listen for a few seconds. Absolutely beautiful. I love that noise. Weapon sound is a massive aspect of guns in games, and another reason why the Martini Henry was so awesome, and that is my list. So please let me know what you think. What do you love about the Martini Henry? What's your favorite reason? Did I miss any out? All of that stuff. If you enjoyed, hit that like button. It's massively important. Subscribe if you're new or haven't done so before and want to see me hit 50k as the current target. I know the links to my social media, including Patreon, can be found in the description and my pinned comment, where if if you do support me on Patreon, you'll join the border wars you're seeing right here with all of the epic people that already do so. They're all absolute heroes, and I love them all deeply and of course often. And with all of that said, I am GetGoodGuy, and I will see you next time. Laters. And a slow reload when you actually needed to do so, especially when reloading without emptying the magazine. Now clearly a lot of that just doesn't line up with what you've been watching.